The United States deployed the first naval ship to Eastern Africa in over a decade in what is a pointer to a new approach by the Joe Biden administration, which appears intent on using military power to pursue American imperialism in Africa. The Expeditionary sea-based USS Hershel Woody Williams has been deployed along the eastern and Horn of Africa coastal region. Rear Admiral Jeffrey Spavey, the ship's captain, gives a hint here on Washington's new military strategy in Africa.
We look forward to working with the Kenyan Navy on future exercises such as Cutlass Express. Cutlass Express is a partnership building evolution where we will look to improve our maritime domain awareness in conjunction with our regional maritime operations centers.
Hello, I'm Mubarak Kenya, and a warm welcome to this week's edition of Africa Today, a program which brings you an in-depth analysis on events happening in Africa. In our program today, we are focusing on renewed American military adventurism in Africa. We are asking, what's Biden's military strategy in Africa? In the second part of our program, we shall update you on the Mauritius oil spill. In this regard, a top British multinational oil and gas company, BP, has been blamed for this disastrous oil spill, but refuses to take responsibility. And don't forget to send us your comments through our social media handle as you watch our show today.
Biden's military strategy in Africa. Immediately after the November presidential election in the United States, high-ranking military officials from the country visited several African countries. The visit by these top Pentagon officials points to a new aggressive U.S. military strategy in Africa. Early January, General Jeffrey Herigian, the commander of U.S. Air Forces in Europe and Africa, traveled to Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti. He later visited Tunisia and Algeria. During this tour, he met key defense leaders in the region. The visit was immediately followed by that of the head of the U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, to 5 East African nations.
Now, according to some reports, currently the U.S. has 7,000 military personnel on rotational deployment across Africa. These troops are reportedly in the continent to carry out joint operations with African forces against terrorists. However, many Africans are opposed to the U.S. military presence in the continent, as this Ghanaian here speaks out during a protest against U.S. military presence in her country.
I'm a mother, and we know what these Americans do. We know that these Americans has a lot of enemies, and by coming to settle their base here, we are not safe. That's the reason why I have to join this campaign, to create awareness.
For more on the United States military strategy in Africa under a Joe Biden administration, we have contacted Nafta Freeman, a coordinating committee member of the Black Alliance for Peace. Thanks a lot for your time, Mr. Freeman. Now, we've seen that after Biden's victory, high-ranking U.S. military officials visited several African countries. Now, does this point to renewed militarization of U.S. foreign policy in Africa?
Yes, I think we can expect to see renewed militarization. Some of the things that the Trump administration did were adverse to the ruling class interest in the United States, the ruling class imperialist interest. They felt, this establishment felt, that Trump was neglecting their imperialist interest in Africa, doing things, for example, like pulling out troops on the ground in Somalia, or the also the Trump move to relocate the headquarters of AFRICOM, which has been placed in Stockholm, Germany. They've actually put a halt on that and said that they're going to be revisiting this issue. They looked at, the Trump administration, Trump himself looked at things like looking at America first and not really so interested or understanding the integral relationship that an exploitation of Africa had to do with the system he's trying to uphold. But now, since he's out of office, they're going to try to shore up some of those things and see if they can intensify the exploitation of the African continent.
Thanks for that, Nafta Freeman, an African-American peace activist. And stay tuned for more.
Over 8 years of Obama presidency, Africa saw an escalation of U.S. aerial campaigns, proxy warfare, and imperial competition. Somalia has been the key target for U.S. drone strikes that intensified under Trump's administration. During both Obama and Trump administrations, civilians bore the brunt of the attacks carried out by the U.S. military. A Somali woman here explains on how she lost her son and other relatives during a U.S. drone strike on a civilian area.
waxaan ka soo qaxay shabeellada hoose waxaana soo duqeeyay diyaarado daroonis ah waxaa iga dhintay aniga wiilkayga iyo gabadhayda wiilka qaba iyo walaalkay wiilkiisa saddexdaas wax alla wixii aan haysanay waa gubtay waa soo baxnay waxaan imaanay.
What strategies will likely be pursued by the U.S. military under Biden in Africa? Can we expect to see similar policies pursued by Obama?
Yes, under Obama, the policy was to expand AFRICOM. When AFRICOM, the militarization of the continent, which is really the recolonization of the continent, United States wasn't able to get on the formal colonization, as it will, of Africa. But even after the independence movements during the 50s, 60s, 70s, the United States shored up and became actually the leading power in terms of neocolonialism on the continent. And under President Barack Obama, U.S. President Barack Obama, they were able to actually realize for AFRICOM, the establishment of the U.S. Africa Command, what they couldn't do when it was established under Bush, which was the proliferation of African lily pad bases and military-to-military relationships on the continent.
China is clearly the United States' main competitor in Africa. With the tensions between Washington and Beijing expected to rise during Biden's presidency, Africa could be a new battleground for these two world powers. Strategically located Djibouti is an example of the ongoing military contest between China and the U.S. and Africa. The Chinese government says its military base in Djibouti is meant to promote peace and stability in Africa.
Setting up the support base in Djibouti was a joint decision of the two countries. It will better let China fulfill its responsibilities in the international community and promote peace and stability in Africa and in the world.
The Senate confirmation hearing for Linda Thomas-Greenfield, Joe Biden's nominee to be U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, provided clues on Washington's aggressive policy to counter China in Africa.
China is a strategic adversary, and their actions threaten our security, they threaten our values, and they threaten our way of life. And they are a threat to their neighbors, and they are a threat across the globe. So I have no doubts in my mind about that. As I talk about that in the speech and referring to the Cold War, again, I'm referring to Africa.
Mr. Freeman, now do you think under Biden, Africa will turn into a theater for U.S.-China Cold War?
Yes, I think we're already seeing some of that. We saw some of that going before, and we definitely will see more of that. The United States is unable to compete with China in terms of the economic strength and its economic ingenuity. And so the only thing that the United States, in its unsustainable system of neoliberal capitalism, the only thing it has to resort to is militarism and war. And so, and militarism itself has become, a business, an industry itself. And so for them, the competition has to be a physical one because they can't compete economically in terms of how their system is designed. And so as a result of that, and the United States is not willing, there's no way that it's going to even consider, the ruling class in the United States is not going to consider cooperation, internationalist cooperation or internationalism. That's something outside of their purview.
Most parts of Africa have seen an increase of terrorist attacks despite the presence of Western forces, especially U.S. troops in the region, which claim to combat terrorism. U.S. troops have been operating in Africa for many years on the pretext of combating terrorism, but terrorist attacks have continued unabated in several parts of the continent.
Well, the studies have shown that not only have they've gone unabated, but they've actually increased. And anytime you have colonial forces operating in a country, making that country unable to meet the needs of its people in any kind of way, you're aggravating a situation. Now, in Africa, they make sure that no real, genuine revolutionary socialist movements or governments can take root that will be able to be responsive to the needs of the people. So the people will resort to more reactionary forms of resistance, like with terrorism. And in fact, the terrorism on the continent of Africa or the military operations on the continent of Africa breed resentment, and people get killed, and their family members have died, and they join extremist groups. So which actually all of this scenario actually helps serve the purpose of the U.S. presence on the continent of Africa. It gives them the excuse to continue their occupation and to super exploit Africa for its resources and labor and markets.
Mr. Freeman, as we wind up this interview, can you tell us what needs to be done by African people to combat imperialism and stop turning parts of the continent into U.S. military bases?
I think is largely, or in a lot of ways rather, in a lot of ways, not largely, the people on the ground have to organize. They have to realize the purpose of these forces in their countries. It's not for any kind of liberation. It's not to combat terrorism. They have to know that they're there for neo-colonial means. And what also has to happen, though, is that it's largely incumbent on population in the United States, people in the U.S., particularly people of African descent, that need to make those connections to stand up and call for a complete, unequivocal, unconditional shutdown of AFRICOM, withdrawal of all U.S. military presence on the continent of Africa. And so that the call has to come and organize, and substantial call has to come from inside the United States. And those people calling for that in the United States and the people on the ground in Africa have to link up to make this cause, to strengthen it.
Mr. Freeman there says that masses in Africa must organize and demand the withdrawal of U.S. troops in Africa.
British Petroleum blamed for Mauritius oil spill.
Last August, a Japanese cargo ship MV Wakashio ran aground on a coral reef off the coast of Mauritius, leaking up to 1,000 tons of heavy oil into a pristine lagoon. A top British multinational oil and gas company has been blamed for this devastating oil spill. Recently released documents show that BP was behind the very low sulfur fuel used by the tanker. BP has also formally blocked an investigation into the fuel, which was reportedly known to be faulty from the moment the Japanese bulk carrier set off from Singapore.
As reported by Forbes, Japanese shipping giant Mitsui O.S.K. Lines had been aware that the very low sulfur fuel oil exceeded engine safety limits. BP issued a statement confirming that it supplied the oil used in the Wakashiu. However, BP denied that the fuel was faulty. The environmental crisis unfolding in Mauritius is a stark reminder of the fragility of terrestrial marine ecosystems. Let's have a glimpse of just how the concerned Mauritians volunteered to clean the area damaged by the oil spill, which is near a popular tourism site environmentally protected area.
And that's what is nice with this part. It takes only oil, no water. The job is being done, and it will take time. The only thing that we need to just put in mind, it won't be done in a week. It's impossible.
The devastation of the Mauritius oil spill is yet to be fully addressed, while no major action has been taken to protect the island's waters from a future incident. Now, for more on the Mauritius oil spill and BP's rejection of responsibility, we have contacted Julius Mbaluto, a London-based African affairs analyst. Thanks a lot for your time, Mr. Mbaluto. Now, British Petroleum BP has denied responsibility for the devastating oil spill in Mauritius, but the evidence appears incriminating. Where is the truth on this matter?
The ship carrying that particular oil arrived in Mauritius, and also BP acknowledges having the fuel, selling it to that company, MOL, in Japan, that was to transport that oil. So the truth is a bit murky here, because there are denials, them denying it, but also investigations have not been carried properly, because also what it seems like BP was trying to block the evidence. So there are things that are not really adding up. BP has denied. Legally, we can only say they've denied. We cannot say they did it because they are denying, and perhaps it's a matter that is subject to more investigation in the future. But where we are right now, it doesn't add up that they are saying they have not done it, yet the evidence show totally different story.
Thanks for that, Mr. Julius Mbaluto, African affairs analyst in London.
The Mauritius oil spill has been described as one of the worst ecological disasters ever to hit the Western Indian Ocean. Yet the Mauritian government, Japanese shipowner Nakashiki Shipping, and fuel supplier BP are withholding crucial information that could aid cleanup efforts and prevent future shipwrecks.
Mr. Mbaluto, you talked there about investigations. Now, what is the state of investigations on these matters, and is BP cooperating with authorities?
Where we are right now, BP has not allowed proper investigations to be conducted. There are allegations from document released through the Freedom of Information Act. These documents incriminate BP. They're saying BP seems to have colluded, or probably IMO, which is the United Nations arm of shipping, arm of handling matters on the seas, rather. They seem to have known, actually, according to this document, they seem to have known that BP had this oil. So all these revelations have come through investigations, but they are not investigations that BP is cooperating. Number one, they tried to hide the truth by saying not responsible, but I think it was in January this year when they came across and acknowledged having sold this particular oil to MOL.
Now, Mr. Mbaluto, you said there that BP is stonewalling investigations into the disaster in Mauritius. Why will they do this if they are innocent and have nothing to hide?
They will be quick, definitely, to deny responsibility. Why? Because the consequences are very stern. When you look into the things that go wrong because of disaster like this, effects are so much. And if Mauritius was to claim for compensation, and also when BP took responsibility, you'll be talking about health issues, effects touching on health of the people, the communities, because these are chemicals landed on the ground. They're gonna definitely affect people on the ground. We are talking about economic impact to their environment. We're talking about the well-being of the people.
So basically, what is clear is that BP is refusing to accept responsibility of the oil spill it caused in Mauritius to avoid paying compensation, which will probably run into billions of dollars.
Campaigners are critical of the very little compensation offered to affected communities. The government set up a Wakashiu Solidarity Grant for around 3,000 people, offering them a one-time pay out of 500. According to maritime law, the ship owner is responsible for damage caused by an oil spill. The Japanese government expressed commitment to mitigation efforts.
As head of the Ministry of the Environment of Japan, committed to the mission of conserving biodiversity, I would like to do my best to help contribute toward any mitigation efforts.
How has the spill impacted on the fragile ecosystem of the affected area?
We're talking about economic impact to their environment. We're talking about the well-being of the people. We are talking about the biodiversity hotspots in Indian Ocean. When you look into this biodiversity, you are talking about the life in the sea itself, which is so critical.
The oil spill in Mauritius was also disastrous for local communities. These marginalized communities are expected to endure economic hardships and long-term health implications, which are already visible.
And that's like 2 weeks, my head, when I go to sleep, is like big head dash, you know? It's not only me, it's everywhere in the local people near coastal here. And the eyes was burning also. I go see doctor for that.
Now, Mr. Mbaluto, this pattern of Western oil multinationals shirking responsibilities, especially after destroying the environment, is repeated across Africa and beyond. Now, what needs to be done to hold to account these multinationals, which appear to be acting with impunity?
I think the first thing to do is to recognize the only body responsible to regulate maritime issues is IMO, and IMO, of course, is part of United Nations. And therefore, when we talk about international territories, crisscrossing international territories, especially in maritime area, we are talking about a form of regulation that will correct all these wrongs and probably prepare the world for more preventive measures rather than reactive measures when things go wrong. So we are talking about we require serious major reforms within the International Maritime Organization, IMO. We require serious, kind of reinforcement of the legislation that's already there. We require monitoring systems.
Well, thanks for your insight, Mr. Mbaluto. It's quite clear that international oil multinationals need to take responsibility by compensating communities affected by their recklessness and disregard for the environment. Now, do you have any burning issue which you feel should be covered here at Africa Today? Do let us know, and we shall give it consideration. Thanks a lot for watching, and on behalf of the entire Africa Today team, take care and goodbye.